to If These Walls Could Talk. I am your host with the most, and I'm the only host today, Wendy Stuart. Tym Moss, I believe, is still, I think, traveling. He was in the UK. I'm going to be starting a little riddle called Where in the World is Tym Moss? Maybe we can even do a contest, right? And people can write in and see if you can figure out where he is. But I think he still is in the UK, but he'll be back with us next week. So I am so happy to have all of you here to keep me company on this really gloomy, doomy, rainy day. I got to tell you, it feels like fall out there. I don't know what the heck is going on with the weather. You all know I'm a summer girl. I need for it to be gorgeous and in the 80s. And you know what? I will get over it. So I've had such a busy last week and one coming up. As you all know, Pride Month it's crazy. It's always crazy. And last weekend we had a show called Springtime in Paris, and it was produced by the Imperial Court of New York to raise money for the Coco Lachine Scholarship Foundation. As you know, the Imperial Court of New York and all the Imperial Courts are about raising money for other LGBTQ non-for-profits. And I love doing this show, Springtime in Paris. I loved it because I didn't have to sing in French. Thank God. I picked a song done by Faith Hill called Paris, and it's a ballad, and I lip sync to it. And it was just really quite beautiful. And you know what? I had a hell of a good time. And if you can't use your performing talents to raise money, then what the heck good are they anyway, right? And of course, this Friday night and Saturday and Sunday is the Lower Eastside Festival. As you know, we are broadcasting here today from Pangea. They also have a lot of great shows coming up in June, so make sure you look online for their schedule. And the Lower East Side Festival, which is a couple of blocks from here, will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. People ask me, well, what kind of festival is it? It's a fabulous festival because I will tell you there's 4 stages and they're all booked with performances, and it's nonstop. And I mean, you can see everything there. I hate using the term soup to nuts, but it really is, from experimental type of things to plays. And I personally will be in the cabaret room, which is what they call the black box. And that will be Friday night. My given time is 10:04. Yes, that is a little random. I don't know if it'll be 10:04. We never usually run early, but, could be 10 minutes to 10, could be, I think, more than likely 10:20. But please come down and watch the show. Support the artists there. I have a lot of friends performing that have been on this show. Evan Lawrence, Clover, Lady Clover Honey, and a host of other people. Of course, Penny Arcade will do something fabulous. She's there every year. So please come and support the arts. So I'm very excited today because, when I'm not performing, you can find me at the Explorers Club in New York, and I give tours there. And I do it often the night we have our lectures. I hate using the word lecture. It's so dry. We have incredible speakers that talk about really interesting subjects. And I always give the tour before the speaker does their thing. And it's just a really very magical place. We also have a Friday frolic there. And if you want to come as my guest one night and you know me, or even if you're watching this and you don't know me so well and we're Facebook friends, ring me up. I'll meet you there. It's great. It's fun. And it's one of the most unusual places in New York. So I have this amazing friend there that she's a fairly new friend for me. And we met. I think it was either at a lecture or maybe at the bar, more than likely at the bar. And she did something that was so unusual to me, and I'm finding is more and more usual. She had retired from her corporate job. She's young, okay? And as I like to tell people, it's all ahead of you, okay? You should never think, I left my job, I'm going to go out on a golf course and play golf. Or as one of my people that I know says to me, Wendy, why don't you move down to Florida and play tennis? I would rather stick an ice pick in my eye. So she obviously had left her job and retired and now can do whatever she wants. She chose to take an extraordinary trip based on a lecture she attended at the Explorers Club. This speaker of course, was Patricia Wright, the world-renowned lemur expert. I think most people know what lemurs are, but if you don't, those are those cute animals with the big eyes. You've seen them, and you can always Google it. There's so many different kinds of them. Pat Wright is an amazing person. There's no one that knows more about lemurs than Pat Wright. And I interviewed her, I want to say 15 years ago. The one thing I love about Pat, she makes herself completely accessible to people. She always asks at the end of any talk that she gives, and if there's anyone that would like to volunteer, please raise your hand. Well, my guest today is fearless, curious, and was just looking for the next thing. And she said, I think I'd like to volunteer. Please put your hands together for Rhonda Stein. There you are. And there we are. Okay, I'm going to move this back a little. I always like to get this framed. There we are. First of all, welcome to the show. This is so great to have you on today.
Fun to be here with you.
It is. It really is fun. I mean, because usually we're having drinks. We
Usually
seem to do a lot over alcohol.
Sometimes crickets as well.
Right. Thank you for bringing that up. At the bar at the Explorers Club, we do have crickets, but that's like old hat to us at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of over snacking on crickets.
Right. You're over snacking on crickets, and we're all very jaded members there because we've gone far behind crickets. We do have a member, Joseph Soon, who I'm dying to have on the show. He is a insect ambassador and gourmet chef. His gourmet has got to do with cooking with insects, and he can do anything.
They're delicious.
Well, I really love the grasshopper mojitos. Did you try those?
I did not try the grasshopper mojitos, but I loved the tempura cicadas. Those were incredible.
Those were absolutely incredible. But I've talked about this with Joseph. It's a psychological thing. I don't want to see the wings and the legs. The mojitos were great because the grasshoppers were ground up.
Oh, okay.
You couldn't see them, and it's the texture. You don't want to feel the legs in your mouth. You know what I'm saying?
True, but the cicadas tasted like shrimp or something like that.
I like that.
They were really good.
I guess, if you think about it, shrimp, we're conditioned that shrimp are okay, but they're kind of icky. They're scavengers, and they're, I'm thinking now about biting into the shrimp. I need to give a little more room for cicadas in the world. That's what I just learned talking to you. There has to be cicada acceptance. So you're from Florida originally?
I'm not. I'm actually from Illinois, but I worked in Florida for quite a few years. When I left the United States to go work in Greece for many years, I came back to Florida. So I was working in Pensacola.
And so you're in Pensacola, Florida. That's the northern part?
Northwest, yeah.
Is that where they have the racing too? Is it Dale Eckert?
No,
that's Daytona.
That's right.
You can see how much I don't know about Florida. But I had no idea you worked in Greece.
I did. I worked in Greece for 10 years.
Okay, that's huge. What were you doing there?
I worked for Navy Federal Credit Union.
Okay.
I was the branch manager at the branch on base at NSA Suda Bay in Crete.
Oh, so that's kind of really cool because when you go anywhere with the armed forces, it's not like being so much a stranger in a strange land because you can go off base and do whatever you want and tour.
I lived out in town.
Of course you did.
Unaccompanied tour, and actually had a very large house and had 2 children while I was there.
So your kids,
My
who
kids are
I've
great.
met, her kids are great, and I met your kids, and they were born in Greece.
Yep, they are Greek citizens as well as U.S. citizens.
And are you a Greek citizen?
I am not.
From the time so you just can't say, hey, I spent some time here and now I want to move here?
No, I can't.
All right. Well, your kids can.
My kids can. They're European Union citizens.
Wow. EU kids. What was it about Greece that you loved so much that made you stay 10 years?
Oh, it was incredible. Of course, having kids, you kind of lose track of time. It wasn't like there was a set amount of time I was going to stay there. But then when I was ready to come back to the United States, I came back with the company I was working for. So I continued working for Navy Federal and moved to Florida.
But wasn't it, I'm thinking of, Greece has got the Acropolis, so many great things. Didn't you get spoiled with the antiquities and the history, like to have to come back and go to Pensacola?
Well, you take that for granted. And of course, my children got very used to going on school trips to the Parthenon and places like that.
I love it.
So perhaps more so for them than for me. I don't take it for granted quite as much. But Florida, of course, has those incredible white sand beaches. And for, a water baby, it was an opportunity to learn how to scuba dive and spend a lot of time.
So that's your other side.
Well, that's one of
you took
the
to
many.
Okay, one of the many. This is something you find out about people at the Explorers Club.
Yeah.
They have many dimensions and wear many hats. Now, you and I met. Did we meet at the lecture Pat Wright gave?
I honestly don't recall. I suspect we met before that.
We might have met slightly before that, but
not
I
too
remember
long.
her talk, and she always asks for volunteers. And I have to tell you something. I'm sharing this with our audience. It's very unique because we meet a lot of very highbrow people at the club, and you might be qualified to go on an expedition, not academically, but you could go there and do things, right? Because they need bodies. And Pat is the one person that will reach out, and she's a great salesperson. She's like, oh, you have to come to Madagascar.
She says that a lot.
Right? Oh, you have to. And she just,
Hi,
know,
Pat.
It's like, yes, hello, Pat. It's like Fantasy Island, and of course, listening to her speak and knowing the work that she does with the lemurs, it's like you want to go. And well, you took the bull by the horns.
Yes. So I was at a talk that evening, and Dr. Wright said that she was looking for volunteers. I had been talking about around the club about wanting to find a place to actively volunteer using my skills from business.
Yeah, of course.
From before that even. And magically, as these things came together, Dr. Wright needed people to go out to Madagascar. So at the end of that evening's talk, I waited patiently in line while all the people who had some experience.
There's a line.
There's a line.
At the end, always.
I waited patiently as all the people who had experience with lemurs went and talked to Pat, and I had no experience with lemurs. And I got up to the top of the line. I said, Dr. Wright, I'm not a primatologist. My background is in operational support and finance, and I'm actively looking for a place to volunteer. And she said, when can you come?
Right. And that's what makes Dr. Wright so special. Because you know what? We all have something we can offer.
Yes.
And it's got to just be recognized. I completely believe that. And she did.
And she did. Well, and the fact of the matter is that Dr. Wright runs a very large research station in Southeast Madagascar with over 130 employees next to a national park. So it has, a dozen departments and all of these different things going on, international researchers coming in and out.
Incredible.
There's a lot happening there.
There's a lot happening. What is her center called again?
Centre Valbio. It's the Center for the Valorization of Biodiversity.
And translate that into...
they're studying international biodiversity research,
and they're studying for people that I don't always take it for granted when we do our Explorers Club speak. People know, right?
Okay.
But biodiversity, you'll tell everyone.
So they're at Ranamafana National Park that Pat herself established over 30 years ago.
Amazing.
In Southeast Madagascar. There is an extraordinary variety of endemic species to Madagascar, and that includes things from snakes and frogs and birds and lemurs, of course, insects of all kinds, everything that's
nowhere else.
90%, as I get it, if I get it correct, 90% of the flora and fauna that is in Madagascar exists only in Madagascar.
Right, as I would figure.
Right. So
did they think in history at any point Madagascar was part of something else? You happen to know that?
Well, we're actually in the perfect place to talk about that because Pangea was about like one world continent, right? And it's right. And it's split off. So if you get the opportunity to hear Dr. Wright talk about continents splitting apart, then basically, again, I'm not a biologist or a primatologist, but at some point Madagascar effectively ended up as a raft and floated away from things and to things. And so things came to Madagascar. Madagascar itself broke off. And so it's this incredible spot.
Right. These species just evolved.
Yes.
Untouched.
And it's a huge island, by the way.
Yeah.
So it has a variety of environments within the island.
But it's a huge island, but not really, you can't just trip the Life Fantastic and easily get around.
It's not easy to get there. So it takes a good stretch of time to get there. So you fly from here, you get from New York to Paris, and then it's a 10-hour flight to the capital of Madagascar, Antananarivo, and then it's a 14-hour drive from the capital to the research station.
I am sure that 14-hour drive was delightful on those paved roads. Ha ha ha.
Yeah,
Right.
They have potholes you drive into and then out of.
Right. You're lucky you don't disappear into them. But
Yeah.
I'm sure even on the drive, every picture I've seen, it's extraordinary.
It is beautiful.
It is
a very beautiful
Just
place.
beautiful. So, you got there, and I followed vicariously Rhonda's whole trip on Facebook. God bless Facebook for that, because I love
nice.
your posts were great. And I watched you go from when you arrived, you were like, yes, this is like so amazing. And this
So
is my
excited.
room. And,
Yeah.
and you know what, how cool to be able to I felt like I went through your first excitement with you.
I walked into the research station, and as you walk through the research station, there's a large balcony on the back. And I got out in the back, and you're looking out over the rainforest and a river, and it's the sights and sounds and smells. And I turned to Dr. Wright. I said, thank you for building this for me, because it was mind boggling.
And I remember your pictures of the river.
Yes.
And you put video up too.
Yes.
Right. I sat on the subway looking at the pictures of the river.
And it was outside my bedroom window as well.
Amazing.
So at night I could hear that.
You
sound.
could hear that water
so beautiful.
at night. So, you were at the center,
Mhm.
which is, you have food there, you have bathrooms.
You have everything there.
You have all what we call, pardon the pun, creature comforts.
All of those.
They're all there. And what did you do your first couple of weeks?
So in the first couple of weeks, actually, there was a group from The Bachelor who had arrived.
I totally love this. How random is
Same
that?
time.
Right.
So Blake Moynes and some others were there, and they were making content for their social media. And so I hung out in the jungle with the kids. And
I love it.
And we ran up and down the jungle, and it was hard to keep up with them. Dr. Wright is 20 years older than I am, and she was ahead of me a lot of the time. So I was learning to keep up, but
Right.
It was such an incredible thing to go into the forest with Dr. Wright and her techs, because she had technicians who were guiding us to the lemurs. So they, were tracking
Wow.
them with the radio collars, and we were able to get closer to some that really are hard to get to see.
How close can you get when you see them in the wild?
It really depends. So depending on the type of lemur, you might be anywhere from a few feet away to 20, 30, 100 feet away.
Wow.
So some of them you'll get to see relatively closely because they're taking a break and they're having a nap and playing on the ground, or they're in a tree taking a nap.
And I'm curious, one of the things I noticed, even I noticed this in the Galapagos, those animals they don't pay people any mind because people were no threat to them. So you got really close, and they would just walk right past you as if you were invisible. Did the lemurs react to you being there?
They
did.
They did. And so they're socialized to a certain extent. They're used to researchers being around,
Yeah, I would think,
and observing them. So they don't really freak out because they don't think you're going to try to hurt them. But then from time to time, honestly, they would come through the research station.
Amazing.
So there was one morning at breakfast, it's 6 a.m. I always got there too early for breakfast, and I'd hang out looking over the river. And this group of lemurs came through to eat the fruit in the tree outside the cafeteria.
How amazing.
And at one point, and I have orange readers that I always have on, at one point, one of the lemurs looked at me and did a double take.
Who are you?
And I asked Dr. Wright about it, and she said it's trying to ascertain if you're a red-faced lemur.
Oh my God, because of those glasses.
Yes, so they do pay attention.
They
and They're
do.
looking at us like we're looking at them.
And what are you?
Yes.
A red-faced lemur because of
my orange glasses.
How incredible, though, to be able to get that close and have them come and take a visit. So
it's a privilege.
I love that you said that. It is a privilege. It really is. So you were at the center, and at one point did you leave and go out trekking?
Okay, so for the first 2 months at the center, I was doing reviews of administrative and fiscal procedures.
Okay,
so
which is what you're trained in.
Really
Right.
sexy stuff. The stuff everybody thinks about doing when they retire. But that was what I was able to offer for them. So I paid my way to go work for free for an organization to do things that they may not be able to get funds to do. So anyway, I was doing that for 2 months. And so it was coming up to the time where Pat was going to be doing this biodiversity survey expedition to a very remote rainforest in the southeast of Madagascar. And I said, hey, Pat, can I go along?
Right.
And she's like, sure. And, after the fact, she admits she wasn't 100% sure about me because she didn't know if I was going to be okay out there. And so
I didn't know if you were going to be okay. I read each and every post, and it, for me, it was kind of like the way I felt in Cameroon. And for me, by day number 10, I was sure I was just going to die out there.
I did not feel like I was going to die.
You didn't feel that at all.
I loved it.
You loved it.
So we went out in late October. I think it was mid to late October we went out, and it took several days to get there.
Right. And you're walking the whole time.
No, the first 2 days we're driving.
Okay.
So we drove to a small town and then drove to the next day to the research station that's at the conservation center that's at the base of that conservation area. And then we had to drive to another place and then walk up an entire day to the location where we were going.
You had to walk up. I think I remember those walking up posts.
Yeah,
it's very steep there.
It was quite steep. It wasn't climbing per se, but it was like walking upstairs an entire day in blazing sunshine.
In the blazing sun,
heat.
Yeah.
And as we kept getting higher, I was looking down, realizing how high.
Bring you back over this way, and you were very.
Quite high.
Yeah. And so, people who don't know, right? What kind of gear did you have to bring with you on this?
Fortunately, nothing I had to carry myself.
So you have people. Okay, listen. I'm trying to interest people that, like Rhonda, she retired and wasn't quite sure what her next was. I love that this was your next, and by people hearing what you have to say, maybe this will be somebody else's next.
Hopefully.
So you had people to carry. You had tents, right?
We had tents. We had a team of 100 technicians.
Oh, how fabulous!
Were 30 scientists. We had 200 porters and a French film crew.
Okay. And the French film crew, by the way, ooh la la, is a whole other subject. That was just a perk. That was just like the cream in the cake.
And we love them all.
And you love them all.
Yeah.
So you did have a huge team out there.
We had a huge team. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize it was that many people.
Yes. So it was an international team of scientists, and Malagasy and American, Polish,
I love it from all over.
Australian, British. I'm going to miss some. Anyway, quite a few.
So you had a very diverse team.
Yes.
What kinds of things were they studying?
So we had, of course, the primate team.
Right.
And Pat led that.
And the primates are lemurs?
Lemurs, yes.
Okay.
And there were several types of lemurs out there.
Yeah.
So there were different procedures for studying the different types, and we can talk about that. But there were also herpetologists studying snakes and lizards and all sorts of fun frogs. And
don't leave the leeches out.
The leeches.
Madagascar is renowned for its leeches.
Right. So we had a leech expert, Dr. Mai Fami, and she was studying iDNA and eDNA. So she would swab the forest to see what has wandered through, test the waters, and see what has wandered through that area.
Was that the person I heard speak? Okay, yes. I want to stop here because this is a lot, right? I never knew that just by swabbing the rainforest, you can pick up DNA. Is that like something new that they discovered that didn't exist 10 years ago?
I would have to believe that's the case. I found out about it just a couple of years ago at the club myself.
Wow.
I had not ever heard of it.
That you can just swipe for DNA. I remember her talking about it during the lecture, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago. That is really quite amazing.
It's kind of fun to watch, too. The first time you see her, you're like, what the heck is she doing? She's got a Q-tip, and she's out in the forest wiping leaves. And she's got a timer set because she has to do it for a certain amount of time.
Okay, but wait a minute. If you're a lemur and you commit a crime, you're done.
You're screwed.
You're screwed. You're toast.
Yep, you're not
because they can tell, or any insect or any kind of misbehaved life form out there, they can tell everything about you.
Yeah, they don't actually have to see the animals to know that they live there, and that's what's so incredible.
Okay, that's really amazing to me because being out in the field with wildlife myself, as they say, no one gets paid to show up. Your trip sounds abundant, but as you know, you spoke to the scientists, you can go out and be out there and have nothing.
Right.
And
that happens.
Yeah.
And so we spent weeks for them to try to cite the lemur cata. and we could hear them in the distance and not see them.
Okay, what is a lemur cata?
The ring-tailed lemur, the really cute one with the black and white.
Oh, a lot of people know that lemur
Yep.
because I've seen them, unfortunately,
And in cartoons.
And cartoons and in zoos, right? But so that's who you were looking
That
for.
was one of the types, and there were the mouse lemurs and the dwarf lemurs.
Right.
As well.
You love. I remember you posting how they're really cute. Can you show us with your hands how big they are?
So the mouse lemur is about this big from nose to bottom, and the dwarf lemur maybe about this big. But they also have all hands. They have 5
They have
fingers.
little hands.
They have 5 fingers, and they're so cute. So the mouse and the dwarf lemurs at night, the team would set traps baited with fruit. I was very jealous because we didn't have enough fruit for the humans.
I know she did write that in her post.
But
it's about the lemurs, Rhonda, not about you.
I know. I was like, I want a banana too. But then they would trap them in the morning, go back to those traps. During the afternoon, would test the lemurs and put them through a battery of physical tests to determine what type of lemur they were, to determine their strength and their curiosity and their agility and their weight and their size and all of these things, and then chip them.
I do recall when I saw the film, and we'll get to that, that they were talking about that.
Yes, so they would do genetic testing on these little critters as well.
How did they do the genetic testing?
They take a tiny sample.
Okay,
so
now was the
hair
lemur in any kind of stress, or they're
minimal stress? I would have to say some of them were really fussy about it and would make a lot of noise. And
there was one in the film that you showed that was really like kind of not happy,
squeaky, and the others didn't seem to care at all.
They didn't even
didn't care. They were curious and looking around. And once in a while, one would just get really feisty and act up. But I mean, they were then returned to the same place where they were initially trapped at the appropriate time of day as well. So they went home.
So this is in science really what we call very controlled.
Very controlled.
Yeah, very controlled.
And they were only handled carefully by technicians whose job it is to do that.
I love it. My God, I'd love to be a lemur tech. What do you do for a living?
Interesting job.
I handle lemurs for a living.
I know quite a few lemur techs.
You do,
they're fun folks.
They are fun. You would have to be because you get into the whole like lemur thing.
Well, and just to be able to handle these little animals on a routine basis.
The gloves
are like chainmail because these little critters are not thrilled about being handled.
And the teeth are sharp.
And the teeth are evidently sharp. So you don't want to get nipped by one, I don't think.
They don't carry rabies or anything, do they?
I don't believe so.
No. I got the feeling Madagascar is such an enchanted place. There's nothing there that could carry disease or rabies or any of those things.
I did get a rabies before I went, but I think it was more because of dogs.
Preventative for the dogs,
yes.
The local
dogs aren't necessarily protected.
So what were you doing? You were with all these scientists. So what was your job?
So on the mountain, I was the jack of all trades, master of none. So anybody who needed anything, if you needed something, you had a problem, you came to Rhonda and we tried to figure it out. So
Rhonda, the go-to girl.
Right. I had a bag of tricks. I had tools. I had repair kits. You had it. You name it, I had it. And so everybody get used to calling me the Swiss Army knife, the solution.
I love it.
And so I did whatever needed to be done. And it was great fun.
And I want to point out, you were there because you put yourself there. You're right. Your background is in finance. Mm-hmm. And look how useful you were and how important you were to this expedition. And I want people to understand that, that these doors are open. If you're even remotely oriented that way, these doors are open and it's
possible.
It is possible, and you can make it happen without, even the Explorers Club. I always thought because I didn't have a PhD in primatology or science, any kind of science, I was not a qualified human being. But for many people, having the passion and the curiosity and just the determination, and I talk about this when I talk about explorers. You're an explorer. You were determined. As it turns out, no one was more surprised than you. No one was more surprised. So on this part of it, it was very hot every day, right?
It was initially very hot. For the first 5 days we were up there, it was really hot. It was in the 90s or so during the day, very little rain. And this is a rainforest. So that was not a good thing.
No, it's not. This is climate change.
Right. That was absolutely evidence of climate change. It was a month into the rainy season already, and it was getting into the rainy season, and we should have had a lot of rain. And unfortunately, due to those dry conditions, when a fire was started, then we had a real situation. And so the fire was approaching the forest fragment that we were in.
Oh, so scary, right?
And yeah, it wasn't a great day. And very, very luckily, and with the help of local people and the teams, the fire did get put out. And then it was 80% put out when it started to rain.
Oh my God. Well,
And
that
it
was a miracle, right?
was
Thank
a
God the
huge,
heavens opened up.
Huge relief.
Let me ask you, you said a fire started. How did the fire start? Is that from slash and burn farming or?
It's usually slash and burn farming. We understood in this instance after the fact that it was potential arson.
Potential arson.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, it was not.
That's scary because you guys were working very close to there, and as we know, wildfires can spread. I've had people on the show that made it through LA and lost everything. That's an example right here in our own country. I can only imagine when you're in these forests, they can just go up in a matter of no time.
What was, I think, the most terrifying was knowing that we were there to survey the biodiversity of this unusual Noah's Ark of a forest.
Wow.
And knowing that it could burn up from one day to the next and be absolutely gone.
Now, this is the forest, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Dr. Wright discovered. I've been calling it the Lost Forest or Shangri-La, but she discovered it. She found it.
She found it. Of course, the local population knew about it.
Well, the local population
they
always
all knew about that.
Right.
But it was, it had been surveyed to some extent, I think 100 and some years prior.
Wow.
So no one had been up there
in 100 years.
Yeah, nobody had done any biodiversity surveys, at least in 100 years.
Wow.
And so for Western science, it was basically brand new.
So with the biodiversity, the range of things, because if what you're saying 100 years ago, things had a chance to thrive, evolve, and all of that, what differed from this forest compared to other areas of Madagascar in terms of the wildlife?
Because it's such a strange pocket of forest at the top of a mountain, it has ended up with populations that are not normally living, and I'm not the specialist in this.
Sure,
but I'm repeating what I've been told so many times. Populations that are not normally living in that kind of climate.
Wow.
So different types of animals from different climates across the island are coexisting in this space that they don't do anywhere else.
And it can't be that big. I mean, obviously it's a forest, it's big enough, but it would seem to me you have a lot of different kinds of animals near each other.
Yes. But it's a complete ecosystem. So there's everything.
It's a complete ecosystem, right? And this is what happens when you don't touch things, when you don't interfere with things.
Yeah. We don't mess it up. It'll be just fine.
We don't mess it up. So at this point of the trip, I want to reference the part of the trip where you realized you needed more sardines.
I did. I needed
because you can never have enough sardines. Right?
So when we went into camp the very first time, we were carrying some fresh beef. I wasn't carrying it. The porters.
There was you had real beef.
We had real beef for the first 2 days. There's no refrigeration there.
No, I know.
And we have some live chickens. So we had chicken for a few days after the beef. When the chicken was over, there was dried fish that was available and some eggs. So those things all ran out over the course of the month.
So they lasted like a month.
They didn't last a month.
They didn't even make a month. Did they make it 2 weeks?
They made it maybe a week and a half.
Okay.
We were running low about the week and a half mark. And we did get resupplied, but I can tell you that I was very happy I had a couple of jars of peanut butter with me, some dried fruit, and a few tins of sardines that I also ended up gifting to other members of the crew.
Oh, I love that, of course.
I mean, some of the guys were really suffering from the lack.
That gorgeous French film crew was suffering. I could not bear to watch them suffer.
Honestly,
I would have given them my sardines too.
They didn't get the sardines.
You're so cruel.
It was the young Australian gentleman, Flynn, Lily's partner, and Matteo, the herpetologist who ended up
You covered them.
Yeah. They were losing weight very quickly.
They were gifted the sardines. I know, listen, from when you started it, and I followed your trip, you were like, I'm like, oh, Rhonda's not getting enough food.
Well, I was hungry, but I also learned that I could live on less than I was used
That
to.
you thought, yeah.
And also, since we're all in the same bucket and the local population was eating far less than we were, it wasn't something I felt like one should complain about.
Right, exactly. No, I love that you brought out that point because, yeah, the local population, Madagascar is a very poor country.
Yeah, it's
and
subsistence farming in many places.
And people don't have a lot there.
No.
So, yeah, I hear you. So at this point in the trip, it started to rain.
It started to rain and it did not stop.
It
did not stop.
You
and
went
it
from
got
extreme
cold.
heat to, and then cold and down.
Yes.
You had your little tent, right?
I had my lovely little tent. And my tent, out of all of the tents, was the only one that did not leak for the entire duration.
Yes, Rhonda.
And
what made your tent special? Did you like research your tent?
Don't know. I donated that tent in Madagascar, and I've subsequently bought one of the same brand that's slightly larger. It's a Eureka, by the way.
Eureka, shout out to Eureka
yes,
Tents.
thank you,
They make
Eureka.
a seriously good tent.
And so it was really wonderful not to be wet at night, and I really don't know why it was better than the rest, but it was.
And people were wet day
People
after
were
day.
wet.
That would completely push me over the edge. I don't like that feeling.
And it was cold.
And you can't dry your clothes out. I have to.
No.
You can't even bring your clothes because nothing dries when you're in
Nothing
those
dries,
conditions.
no.
You're
So-
putting on wet clothes every day.
Yeah, the same clothes anyway. So
It's the
didn't really
same
matter.
clothes.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
The wool was important. I was very grateful for my wool layers. So
the wool really helped.
wool really helps. You don't really want to be in fleece during those things, but wool base layers. So I remember one day I was wearing all of my clothes.
Oh
And
God, I don't mean to laugh at this.
no, but I had
No.
on wool base layers and pants and waterproof pants and a silk turtleneck, a wool base
And you were
layer, and a sweater and a vest and a jacket and a hat and gloves and scarf.
And you were fine.
I was fine.
And you were fine. I'm sure, though, not everybody thought to bring that.
Most people did.
They did know the
yeah.
conditions.
But again, the local population, the porters who were coming to
Well, of
take
course, yeah.
down a group that was departing, some of the botanists were getting ready to leave. They were wearing T-shirts
I
and
know.
thin cotton garments and no shoes.
Because being in Africa, the local people always amaze me. The guides, they're acclimated, totally
Well,
different.
They also had nothing else.
But how
But
much
they
you
were
have to-
cold. You could
They
tell
were cold, but they still it's not like it amazes me. There's a strength in people.
I think it's also that the human condition is such that if you don't have an expectation to be warm, perhaps it's not that it's easier, but you're resigned to the situation. I mean,
okay. Now we're getting into the whole thing where different brains in different parts of the world. Is there something in their brains, the way they react, because they just live in those kinds of conditions,
Yeah.
as opposed to us, where mentally our brain is telling us something else. It's like, we shouldn't be cold like this. We shouldn't be too hot. We shouldn't be. You have to really wonder. That's a whole other thing.
I don't know if
We
there's
need
any structure to the human brain about that. I think it's more just that you're not going to get warm, and you know it.
And you totally know it. So, did you make any incredible discoveries while you were there?
Did I personally? No.
No, but your group.
There were new species being discovered every single
Okay,
day.
so that's
Every
amazing.
single
New
day.
species every single day, which
Yes.
is why we have to take care of our planet. Is there a new species of lemur you want to share with
I
us?
hear rumors.
There's rumors of a new species.
So
of lemur.
look for Dr. Wright's publications.
And when can people expect that? If they do a Google search?
I think one has already come out or is just about to come out.
Okay,
So,
they
yes.
can Google like new species of lemur.
Just Google Dr. Patricia Wright and you'll
Got
find
it.
something.
Who that in this new lemur? Now you got me excited. Is it one of the little ones or it's a bigger one?
TBD.
Oh my God! She has
Very
me.
cute. I promise it's cute.
It's very cute. You know what? I have to tell you, all lemur. There's nothing cuter than a lemur. When I was advertising this on my social media, and your picture was so cute, but I put a lemur next to you because who doesn't love a lemur, right? And so in your group, now you've discovered a new species or whatever, then what happens? At some point, people started leaving, right?
Yes.
They had to get back.
Yes. So
Was that the French film crew or the scientists?
the scientists rotated off in various chunks. So as we started to leave, I ended up departing a day in advance of the film crew. Dr. Wright had already left. Dr. Fahmy had already left. There were several different groups still at the site.
And now we have hours journey that you're talking
and
about.
Then we have days journey.
It's a day's journey to get back
Several
to
days,
your main center.
Yes, and it was lovely to get back there too.
I remember when you got back. I remember when she cut back there. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy for Rhonda. First of all, you were like this in your pictures. Your clothes were hanging off of you. No wonder you could put all those layers on.
Yeah, that's true.
What did you lose? Like 15 pounds?
I honestly don't know.
You're thin to begin with.
I really don't know, because at my first opportunity, I ate everything I could.
Yeah, I remember that first meal you had back.
Yes, the first meal I was with my friend Alexa Lightborn, who's an ornithologist, and we were in the town of Ihusi, and we ordered everything we could possibly order. We ate between us a dozen eggs, a bowl of ramen, French fries,
amazing
fruit. There was a bottle of vodka, a bottle of juice.
All in one setting.
All in one. Covered the table and just had them keep bringing food.
Wow.
But again, we had the opportunity to do it, and
amazing
to be able to say, I want to buy a dozen eggs to eat is an incredible privilege as well, when you think about it.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being aware of the privilege. It was privilege. And you see, when they advertise trips to these places, which is why I can't do a trip. I have to go as either making a film or part of something where it's going to completely involve the local people, because otherwise it's like, I don't like being the person looking at, it makes me very uncomfortable. These people really don't have.
They do enjoy looking at us as well.
Yeah, but that's right. But because
which was a lot of fun.
Isn't that great? The time I spent with the Mercy people with the clay plates, they thought I was the funniest thing on the face of the earth.
The children in Rhonda enjoyed laughing at me. You
were so fun, but how beautiful is that? Right, it's that whole cross-cultural thing. Yeah. So you're back at Ramadafan.
Say that 10 times fast.
I can't even say it once. Ranomafano. Was that close? No, it wasn't even close. Okay. All right, it's okay.
So we were back in town,
and you're back in town, and at that point you had adopted 2 puppies.
So I moved off the research station at that point into a house in town.
Okay. What made you do that?
I wanted to try something different.
Yeah, Rhonda had been hardcore at this point. She survived the expedition out there. So
which didn't seem terribly difficult, actually, but I wanted to have a different experience. I'd been living in the research station day in, day out, and I wanted to live in town. So I rented a house. It was a lovely house, 2-story. I had hot water. I had a kitchen with a refrigerator.
You had a shower and a toilet.
I had 2 bathrooms.
You had 2 bathrooms?
2 bathrooms.
Wow.
I hired a lady to cook for me, and I had a gentleman who took care of the grounds in the house.
And so you have to share with everyone what that cost you.
The house rental was $200 per month, and
amazing.
Salaries for the cook and the caretaker were $60 each per month.
This is incredible. This is the stuff we hear about. Yeah. And you're contributing to the local economy.
That was the intent. So it was also nice to build relationships with these people and with people in town.
Yeah.
And I ended up having 2 puppies deposited in my beautiful yard. I had this walled yard with orchids and just incredible greenery.
So someone just dropped 2 dogs.
Dumped 2 puppies in the yard, and I didn't intend to adopt them, and the lady wanted to sell them to me, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not staying.
Yeah, right.
I'll be here for 2 months, and that's it, in that house. And so she said, well, can I leave them here? I said, will you continue to feed them? She said yes.
Oh, come on, Rhonda. You know what the answer was.
We know what was going to happen.
Right.
It lasted a little while where she fed them some.
And then you never saw her again.
I didn't. But so Breek and Brack.
Yes. Yeah.
Were adopted and learned about tummy rubs and ear shoofing and
nose
booping.
Wow.
And baths.
You get attached to them. You bathe them and you get attached to them.
and they learned to love potato chips and peanut butter and hamburger and things. I think
you put them on an American
Malagasy dogs
American diet, French fries.
They got everything I ate.
Wow.
And so when I ran out of dog food, I only managed to buy a bag of dog food once. And so when that was gone,
they ate what you ate.
They ate what I ate. They were pretty happy about it.
Right. And they were actually still healthy too. They tell us here, we all buy dog food for our dogs, but I sometimes question that.
Well, these little guys were pretty malnourished when they came, and they didn't grow a lot in the 2 months that I had them.
Okay.
So I don't know. When I left Rhonda, my cook Julisse adopted them, and she was very happy, and they were as well, because she was the cook, and they were used to hanging out with the cook.
They knew her, and I love. There's so many components to your story, Rhonda, because it wasn't just that you put yourself out on a limb and experienced something that you had never done in your life, but it's the way you interacted with your environment, from the expedition to the local people. They gave you a lot, and you took
absolutely.
And you took it all in. You knew the uniqueness of it.
I did, but also I was so happy to make real relationships with people.
Incredible,
the research station. Some of my closest friends there are two of the lemur technicians, a couple who have a little girl named Nature in English.
They named their daughter.
Her name is Fahari, which means nature.
I love it.
And she's a beautiful child, and she speaks 4 languages. At
already,
2 years old when
at
I
2.
left. Yeah.
Wow.
And she knows the names of all the types of lemurs.
Amazing. And again, a scientist in the making,
yes,
being
indeed.
Passed down from her parents. So I think it was the tail end of your trip. You can tell
yes.
I read every Facebook post and I put hearts
story.
Next to them. You went out with the doctor, the medic, to
yes.
the villages.
Yes. So in my final 2 months in Madagascar, I spent most of that time working with either Dr. Wright, supporting her efforts, but also I went on a medical expedition with a doctor, a nurse, a technician, and a cook to 3 of the villages surrounding Rhonda National Park. And to get to these places, there's no road. So we walked.
Yeah.
And we took dugout canoes, and we walked some more. And so it took hours to get to each place. And then while there, we lived in the public house of each of the villages. And
that's interesting. Mm-hmm. So each village had a public house for
at least one.
At least one. That's wow.
And they hold their, when they have funerals or when they have other ceremonies, that's what they use them for, is housing and for ceremonies. And then so we would set up shop, as it were. We would set up clinic, and the doctor would see patients for a day and a half in each location. And so we saw a total of about 250 patients over the course of 11 days. And
that's a lot of people. What kinds of things did you find? I mean, this is people who were malnourished.
Yes, definitely malnutrition. Of course, it was malaria season. It was rainy season.
Right.
So a lot of malaria.
And I want to stop at the malaria thing, because that's something that exists all over Africa, Asia. In your case, you were taking malaria pills, right?
I was unsuccessful at taking malaria pills. I tried each of the 3 types and had terrible reactions to them.
You did? Wow.
So I was relying on mosquito netting and insect repellent, and fortunately managed to come out of 6 months in Africa and Madagascar without getting malaria.
Wow, that is fortunate, because I had to take Malarone, and I found out the
can't do it.
Female mosquito where I was actually immune to it. So chances of getting bit were more than I would have liked. So there was a lot of malaria. How did they treat malaria there?
They have medication for it, which actually works very quickly.
Yes.
So you would see these little kids brought into the clinic, and they were just drooped. Yeah. They had no energy.
High fevers.
They were just absolutely miserable. And within hours of taking the medication, they're running around like normal little children do.
I think that I love that you're sharing this, because I think people need to understand the conditions in these places that we go to and how quickly it can be turned around.
And the doctor was always annoyed, because we would hear the children parading, thumping around the village all evening, and he was like, they should be indoors, because now is when the malaria mosquitoes are biting.
Right.
And he didn't like it, but I mean, the sound was joyful.
Yeah, I mean, these
But,
little kids were
yeah.
recovered. What other kinds of things were there? Typhoid or?
I didn't see any typhoid, I don't recall, but there were conditions that were really specific to the age and sex brackets. So at a certain point, you would see malnutrition, you would see vitamin deficiencies,
Of course.
There was some arthritis, there were a lot of STDs, and just kind of a whole spectrum of things. But the life expectancy there isn't terribly high.
That was going to be my next question. What is the life expectancy?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I can tell you that when I was out there, people could not understand how old I was because my age is really unusual for them. And for them to see a woman, at that time I was 59, and they could not understand that I was 59, had my teeth like this, and was able to do the things because when you don't have great medical care and great nutrition and wonderful conditions throughout your life, you're going to wear and tear quite a bit more.
Oh, and you're gonna die young. Chances are you're gonna die young. I'm curious. The medication for the malaria, the government paid for it?
No, that was paid for by donors. The donors to the
I
medical
did
team.
that in the Omo Valley in Ethiopia, and it was out of pocket. You know what it costs to treat a kid with malaria?
Not much.
$10.
Yeah, it's not much.
$10. Otherwise, they die. That's what blew me away. I had no idea. And at the clinic, the kid's father wanted to pay for the child's treatment with a cow, and they wouldn't. It was either a cow or a goat. You know how it goes. And I'm like, how much is this? And it was just $10. I cannot believe even now that we can't conquer this all over.
I was very grateful to the donors for the medical team because the money they give for this team to go out and address these issues, it's really quite difficult for family to take the kids to a regional clinic because it's so far away. It's everything is 3-4 hours walk away, and you have to stop work to do that. So unless it's really the end, people don't go to the clinics very much.
But often you don't know that it's the end, and babies get very sick very quickly, and then that's it.
Yeah.
You know.
And unfortunately, we ran out of medications while we were out there.
I think I recall that happened. And do you go back and get more, or that's it?
Yeah. We did send someone for backup supplies, and we were able to treat more people that way. It was just heart-wrenching, though, to see. There were times we had to turn people away because we didn't have any tests. Right. And we couldn't give medication if we didn't test them first.
Right.
So there were a lot of catch-22s out there.
It's hard. You know, you'd like to see these places some way, somehow. We love the beauty of them, right? Mm-hmm. But somehow get what they need on a regular basis. Either government subsidized, or I know in some of the African countries there's now more government subsidy, but it seems in Madagascar that's not happening.
I don't know what the situation is currently. I haven't been back since 24, but I do have to give a shout out to the medical team. The nurses amazing. And doctors that go out to these villages live in incredibly meager conditions for that whole time. And they have to walk to get there every single time and spend 10 or more days in the field. It's tough, glamorous. I mean, they're just as much at risk of the diseases that they're being exposed to. Yeah. And it's really hard to see, and they have such incredible spirit about it too. Dr. Thomas and Nurse Luva.
It's what they do.
Yes, I was so impressed, and just incredibly fun people too. So here I was with this team of 4 men, and we had a blast. We had a great time.
That's great.
Yeah, they're great entertainers, it turns out, as well.
I love that. How did they entertain you?
Themselves as well as me. There was a lot of what track is this that I'm playing, and there were a lot of show tunes, surprisingly.
Stop it. I love this. In a remote Madagascar areas playing show tunes.
Classical music.
I love it.
And the first one to guess, it was you got it. It was not anything but bragging rights. There were some video games, and I can't even recall what they were, but at the end there were like 2 or 3 days where we were playing this game just frantically. when we would break in the evenings or for
I
meals.
love this.
And yeah, it was great. But they were wonderful. And Bob, our guide, was just such a gentleman in helping me through the mud. We were sliding down,
I would imagine.
clay hills and things like that. So it was, I mean, they were a delight. Jacqueline, our cook, was a young man who would love to go on to study, but couldn't because there wasn't enough money to pay for his studies.
And the doctors that you did have with you, they were from Madagascar, but had gone to medical school somewhere else.
No, in Madagascar.
So there is that potential if you
absolutely.
can get out of your village.
Yes. And Dr. Tomas's grandfather was a doctor as well.
Amazing.
And
talk about paying it forward.
Yeah, Nurse Luva, his father is a doctor.
Is a doctor
So,
as well. Incredible story. Now, you just screened the film that they made about Dr. Wright's expedition. You just screened it at the Explorers Club. It was really a lot of fun. The only person that we had from the French film crew was a lovely woman she was one of the producers.
Yes, one of the producers.
She was great. Yeah.
Yes, she's great.
So what is the name of the film?
The film is Ivuiburu, The Lost Forest.
I don't know how she says this.
I'll tell you what, it took some practice.
Yeah.
It took me several months just of listening to figure out how to say it.
It's spelled like Ivaho.
It's spelled like Ivo He Boro.
Right. Ivo He Boro. Right. I remember.
Right.
That's why I made you say it, not me. But it was a lost forest. It
is. It's. You don't want to go there. Please don't go there. Because it needs to stay as it is. It does not need tourists.
Well, you know what? One thing that I'm sure you've all gotten from what Rhonda said, this is not easy to get to.
No.
And that's a blessing. And Dr. Wright will continue to go on and study, as will the people that join her.
She is actually taking volunteers for.
Here we go.
If you're looking for,
if you're looking for something to do. Okay, so let's talk about that. What's the minimum amount of volunteer time?
Oh, it's the entire time you're there, 24/7. It's not like 2 hours.
But can you go for a month, or you went for how many months?
I was in Madagascar for 5 months. I took a break in December and went to Kenya and Tanzania.
I remember when you did that too.
But no, there's no specified amount of time.
Right.
I think people do go out and volunteer for shorter times. I was just there to do the work and to get as much exposure in the organization. I continued to collaborate with Dr. Wright and ICTE, which is her Institute for the Conservation of Tropical Environments at Stony Brook. I collaborate with them on a weekly basis.
I love that.
So I'm still pitching in and helping out wherever I can. There is some talk, maybe I'll go out there again next year to assist the new COO who's coming on right now. But I'll only go if there's actual work that makes sense for me to do there.
Yeah, I think I recall you saying that, but I mean, my gosh, what an incredible experience. So we're talking today about what's next. What's next?
Well, I have started collaborating with an organization called Polar Academy. So kind of the opposite. I was going to say polar opposite, but I didn't go there.
Okay, you could say that. I was thinking it in my head, but I thought you might say
I did.
it. Polar opposite.
Polar Academy is a Scottish nonprofit that works with at-risk Scottish kids to train them to be polar explorers. So Craig Matheson, who is a member of the Explorers Club and one of our EC50, one of the
Explorers Club 50 Explorers that we celebrate every year. We have 50 more.
Yes, so Craig decided as a young man that he wanted to be a polar explorer, and he's gone and done many, many things, including that. But then he decided when he was in the late stages of his corporate career that this wasn't doing it for him, and he wanted to train kids to be polar explorers.
Wow.
And so Polar Academy works with schools in the UK, and they go in and work with the advisors, the counselors, and identify kids who are at risk. Kids who are not doing potentially very well, perhaps due to bullying or whatever situations, and they put them through a selection process. The kids who are interested and the parents who agree to it, they put them through a selection process. And so these kids who are then chosen to participate get trained for a year.
What an opportunity.
And then end up going to Greenland on expedition and do data gathering for St. Andrews and Cambridge and Oxford University scientists.
I see, you know what I love about this? It's a win-win for every single person involved. I mean, setting up a program like this, think about it. we have JR at the Explorers Club who's doing the climbing to, I keep wanting to say Everest, it's not, Kilimanjaro. And he takes a small group, and there's a small group of African kids that join it. But I believe if we did these things on a larger scale all over, and it's like an intervention. That you're really getting kids really turned on, kids that might not have the opportunity.
And these kids get the opportunity to really become the best version of themselves.
Right.
So they make a commitment that when they return from their expedition, they go on to do public speaking and to talk to at least 3,000 other teenagers. And most of them end up talking to 20,000.
Wow.
So they get this incredible experience.
Right.
And they're doing wonderful things. They're going on to university and becoming scientists, opening their own businesses. There are over 340 kids, I believe, who've graduated from the program so far.
No wonder you want to be involved with
I
this.
know.
It's
so
like,
I'm going to Greenland.
Of course you are. I would expect nothing less.
Yes.
I'm
going on a supply and maintenance run. I will not be pulling a sledge on the ice. Thank you very much. And Craig, I can't. I just can't.
You just can't pull a
sledge.
sledge.
Do that. But he did ask how my ATV skills are, and I said, well, it might need some brushing up.
You'll be on the ice, though, right?
It's going to be cold.
It's cold. It's Greenland.
In August.
I know, but it's Greenland, you know, and there's ice and there's snow in Greenland in August.
I hear
too.
that.
Yeah.
So I don't know yet. It's kind of like I said, it's the polar opposite of Madagascar.
She really
another island.
It's another island. Rhonda likes to island hop. Well, we have a couple of comments I'd like to give shout outs here today. Cheryl Pierce, did you have a memorable insect encounter during your stay?
Oh gosh, there was one caterpillar that was terribly menacing. The only thing that can really mess you up in Madagascar is caterpillar. And so I was
poisonous.
There's some kind of neurotoxin.
Oh, that's bad. So you can get paralyzed.
Yeah. So I was sitting calmly in a camp chair under canvas one day when Alexa, the ornithologist, starts screaming at me, "Don't move." And I'm like, what? She's like, "Don't touch that caterpillar." And I'm like, okay, I won't.
She knows this stuff.
And so everybody proceeded to scoop this thing off of me and get it away. But that was the most terrifying thing.
How big was it? It was
like caterpillar size. It was the cutest little
furry. It was furry. Yeah,
cute little fuzzy caterpillar.
But rule of thumb, we've learned when they're fuzzy, they're toxic.
Right. And so don't touch the caterpillars in Madagascar.
Don't touch the caterpillars. And Cheryl, thank you for tuning in. There's Natalie Cash is on here. It's a dog's world. We just share it with them. Isn't that the truth? That's exactly right.
And every day I'd come home and I'd call them as I walked into the yard, and they'd come flying for me in those little.
Because you were the most important person.
I had potato chips.
You had, but even beyond that, no. You know what? People have discussed this. It's not just the food; it is the companionship.
Yeah,
you were their person.
I was their person, and I was the first person I think that had ever really given them affection. And they were street puppies.
I love that the cook has them now, and hopefully, she's still there. And they're well taken care of. Okay, let's see who else is on here. Okay, Natalie Cash also wrote, Forest of, I can't say it, Rhonda, please, thank you, was a wonderful film. Thank you for bringing it, Dr. Wright, and the panel discussion to the Explorers Club, Rhonda. Absolutely, we loved it.
I was so glad we were able to do it.
And Natalie is the one that did the whole intro that night. It was great.
She does a fantastic job. I love her intros.
Absolutely fantastic. She's with the Wildlife Conservation Society. And I always love about this. One of the first things Natalie Cash told me about herself, she's been on the show, was where her office was located behind the aviary. And I thought, that would be like a dream thing for me. You don't have to go out into the bush. You have all those birds, and
you're Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, you got Fifth Avenue. You have, the birds located right there. They're part of your everyday thing. I think that's really cool. Rhonda, this has just been absolutely fabulous. I am wishing you the best when do you leave on the next polar expedition?
In Greenland, I'll be flying from Glasgow to Iceland and then on to Greenland by helicopter on July 31st and August 1st. So and then we'll be in Greenland till about the 12th. And then I'll be back in Scotland for a few weeks after that. And then I'm going to go put my feet up.
Rhonda is putting her feet
Ireland for a month.
Wow. Yeah. I know you love Ireland. I know in between all this that we've been talking, there was a trip made to Ireland too.
Yes, I have a fondness for small Irish villages. So
their quaintness.
I just love small towns and villages in general.
Same.
So,
I am very much the same.
Yeah.
Although the ones in Ireland come with pubs and
yes,
toilets and showers. It's just totally civilized.
and delicatessens
And yeah.
fish and chip shops.
And fish and chip shops. Yeah,
Yes.
I love the quaintness of those
afternoon
villages.
tea.
Tea. Hi, tea. Thank you, everyone who tuned in today. You know, if you're thinking about what your next is, that's the reason I wanted to have Rhonda on today. These types of things are doable. If you go out there and look for them, you totally can make them happen. All right. It's all ahead of you, and it's all about putting it forward. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back next week. Rhonda, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I always hug my
Great
guests. And
privilege.
wait, I always get to take a picture. Okay, I take a picture of us on screen. I know this is like really hokey. There's a way I can do it through the computer, but I don't really know how to do it. So I'm just taking a picture of us now. Cheese. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week. Goodbye.